I don't care what anyone else says, flying through the air in your rocket-powered mech suit only to snap into a hover mode, lock onto enemies, launch a missile barrage, and then snap back into flight mode to escape is one of the coolest things I've done in gaming, and honestly, I'm gonna miss it. What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Gakis, and today we are discussing the end of Anthem. Now, Anthem is a looter-shooter game that came out back in February of 2019. When this was being revealed, a lot of people called this the Destiny killer. And although Destiny has certainly had its ups and downs, and right now it's undeniably not doing so well, Anthem, like a lot of other Destiny killers, is about to die itself, officially. And that's because tomorrow, on January 12th, EA is shutting down the Anthem servers forever. You will no longer be able to play Anthem starting tomorrow. And so, in this video, we're going to be talking about Anthem and the situation it's in, going over a lot of the factors that led to its demise, and also talk about some of the things I still think Anthem did right. I was able to hop back on the game over the past couple of days and refresh my memory about exactly what this game is, and some of the cool features and its many, many flaws. And so, let's get started. Now, the first thing I need to talk about is, I think, something everyone can agree with in terms of Anthem, or at least almost everyone, and that is, it's kind of BS that EA is just shutting down the servers. They charged full price for this game, even though it was back in 2019. You really can't put this into a single player only mode. You have to remove people's ability to play this entirely. And even the process of playing it right now in these final few days when the servers are still up is infuriating and anti-consumer. Let me tell you guys about what I had to deal with, because the background gameplay is me playing, but I'm on a friend's account. That's because when Anthem originally came out, it had a deal with EA Play. If you signed up for the EA Play monthly service, I believe you got like early access to Anthem, and so that's what I did. Along the years, I ended up canceling my EA Play subscription because I wasn't using it. I hopped back on EA Play and I re-upped my subscription, fully expecting it to work. In fact, you can see right here, it tells me that it's taken Anthem out of my library because my EA Play subscription lapsed. But if I want access to this content, I can simply re-up with EA Play. That's exactly what I did. I even signed up for the premium, the best version of EA Play so I could play this game. And I have no problem with paying for, 1 month of EA Play to get access to this game to play it one final time. But I couldn't. Even after the notification said, hey, re-up your subscription and then you could play, when I did that, it just didn't appear in my library. In fact, it says you cannot download this game. I, again, had to borrow a friend's account who had bought the full copy and not used EA Play to actually play the game. So, just ridiculous. EA Play's own service says if you refresh your subscription, you get access to this content. I do exactly that, and I'm barred from that content. Insanity, and again, extremely anti-consumer. If I pay $60 for a game, why are you shutting the servers down forever? You can't possibly pass this on to the community, release some code, let people run their own custom consumer servers if they want to. I'm sure some people would. But again, this highlights that there's a giant movement called Stop Killing Games talking about this very issue, that games are just being taken away from people with little warning, and it's just unnecessary in a lot of circumstances. Now, that's a whole other topic. I just want to highlight, that's one of the situations behind Anthem is that, you had to originally play it through EA's own system. They had the EA Play stuff. Maybe just launching it on Steam would have been a better idea, you know what I'm saying? Now, let's talk more about the game itself, and specifically, talk about some of the things it did right. Number one, my goodness, it's a good-looking game. And you're going to see that as soon as you start playing. You spawn into Fort Tarsus, which is this game's version of the last city. You can wander around, there's a bunch of NPCs and shops and so on. You can collect quests and missions here. And then you get into your Javelin, which is the name of the mech suits. And oh my goodness, I will say, the animation for actually getting in your suit is so sick. Now, I remember having played the game through any point of time, this would get pretty tiresome, but having taken such a long break, it does bring me back. It is awesome to actually see your character get into this suit. And then of course, you're transported into the world and just flying around the world of Anthem. Again, such a good looking game, and it really does give you that sci-fi otherworldly feel. This feels like Pandora from Avatar, almost, right? Like a sci-fi universe. And the closest thing I would equate this to is back in Destiny 1, seeing those skyboxes, right? You're on Venus, you're on the moon, looking up into the sky and seeing a foreign skyscape. That's kind of what it feels like in Anthem. You're flying around these unnatural formations. You see like crazy foreign skyscape, these crazy ruins and buildings in the distance. It does really feel cool. The flying aspect is undoubtedly something this game did right. And how I would really explain it is, imagine playing another game that has the ability to fly in it. Mainly, think about Battlefield games or Star Wars Battlefront games. Games where you're in a big battle, you have mostly infantry, but you have a couple of planes and helicopters. How many times do your teammates hop in a plane and crash into a mountain immediately, right? Like, we all know that. We all know that happens so much. But in Anthem, essentially, they gave every single person the ability to turn into a plane, and honestly, you're not crashing into mountains. I mean, sometimes you're crashing into a few things. It takes a little getting used to, but I would say Anthem is one of the most accessible games in terms of actually having flight mechanics that I've ever played. The fact that you are an infantry soldier running around on the ground, just a normal looter shooter, but then you can instantaneously hop up into the air, fly around like a jet, hover, shoot while hovering, go from hover to drop back down to the ground, or from hover, fly again. All of those transitions, all of that movement tech, honestly, it's like a miracle Anthem pulled that off. Like, if you think about, again, the average player being able to do all that stuff and all that stuff working so seamlessly, that is one of Anthem's biggest achievements. However, we then transition into the bad, because what we've talked about is really the coat of paint for Anthem. It looks great. Like, the sci-fi aesthetic is fantastic. The concept of flying around in these super powerful mech suits, so cool. Some of the gameplay loops, launching the missiles, so cool. But it's all surface level. When you get deeper, when you get into the looting aspects, right? When you get into the build crafting, things really start to fall apart. And the one thing that I was reminded of very quickly is that I looted some stuff and I wanted to see what I got. Oh my goodness, like some stuff on the ground. I picked it up, I tried to open my inventory, and I couldn't. And that's because in Anthem, if you go out into the world, you can loot stuff, but you're actually not allowed to look at what you got until you end your activity, right? Until you end your session, and then it will go over everything that you got within that session. So you're not going to be able to play through a mission, beat the final boss, you get all this stuff. You don't actually know what you got until that mission end screen finally comes up, and then you can actually go over what you got. And that, for a looter shooter, I think is a mistake. Now, obviously that was a technical limitation, but man, I remember the moments in Destiny when you would open the chest in the Vault of Glass, right? The Gorgon chest in the Vault of Glass that could drop exotics, and you would get the Galahorn. There's still clips to this day of people screaming their heads off over getting Galahorn in excitement. That's not really possible with Anthem. You're gonna have the big loot screen pop up, and by then, the excitement is not as palpable, right? Like, do you really think it would have been as exciting in Destiny? You go through the whole thing, you don't get to see anything you got. You don't get to know if you got a Fatebringer. It's just a random engram until finally the end screen pops up, right? Now, obviously, I mentioned engrams. Destiny does have its own version of that where you don't know what's in an engram until you go and decode it, right? But You saw Destiny move away from that, and now everything kind of just drops as is, and the Cryptarch is next to useless, right? And so again, it's about that instant gratification. You want to kill the boss and see what you get from that boss immediately, whether it's Destiny, whether it's Borderlands does this. On top of that, there just wasn't enough things to do in Anthem. Now, Anthem came out and it would add additional content to the game, but it simply wasn't enough. I remember when it first came out, the end game was 3 different strongholds. Strongholds you had already played through, but these strongholds were accessible at higher difficulties, I guess, and that was kind of it. And I think there was like 3 of them. Now, Anthem would promise to add a big event called Cataclysm with endgame content, and it would actually get delayed by several months. A game that desperately needed new endgame content would have its apparent endgame content delayed, and when that content came out, unfortunately, a lot of people were just disinterested in that point. Now, I also have to talk about when this game first came out, it had a lot of glitches and bugs. In fact, the person I played with, I had apparently a god copy, right? I had a god copy of the game. Nothing really bad technically happened to my version of the game, but the person I was playing with had a ton of glitches. Their game crashed a few times, and I specifically remember that during the final cutscene of the campaign, when I was watching it, my friend's character fell through the map, and so he was watching the final campaign cutscene underneath the map. He couldn't see anything, like he was only hearing stuff. That's the kind of things we're talking about. There's a lot of technical problems with Anthem, and it was bricking PCs and bricking consoles when it came out as well. I don't know how common that actually was, but I definitely remember hearing stories of that. So yeah, it was buggy when it initially came out. It didn't have enough content, and in terms of looter shooters, again, like you weren't able to customize and look at what you got in game. It had a lot of issues. On top of that, the devs and the community team behind Anthem made some big mistakes, and one of those I still remember is that you had a very popular Destiny streamer, at the time Destiny streamer, Glad, who was doing an exploit. Nothing crazy, right? Like not glitching the game in a catastrophic way, just farming these chests, if I can remember correctly, that would spawn like very quickly, like kind of exploiting load zones to farm chests. If you're hearing that, you're going, oh my god, that's super common. I mean, we were doing that back in the House of Wolves DLC for Destiny 1, right? Like exploiting the load zone and coming back in your Sparrow to get chests multiple times. Like every looter shooter, you're going to have people exploit the easiest ways to get loot. They banned him. They banned Glad on stream when he was doing this. That is not the right approach. And so, one of the few people actually playing your game still, you ban. That was definitely not a good approach. And again, you've really seen other looter shooters, their mentality around that stuff, they shift. They say, listen, like, if we have an exploit in the game, that's our fault. If you do that, we might, have to lower your inventory, but we're not going to penalize you or ban you for doing that. So yeah, really crazy situation there that I vividly remember, and there was just a lot of things that led to the demise of this game, and it never really recovered. But a big part of the reason why it didn't is that EA gave up on it. They just pulled the plug. I remember Anthem developers were tweeting screenshots of potential changes. A complete loot system overhaul was on the horizon. Like, this is something that would have genuinely improved the game significantly, and EA pulled the plug, right? And so I think back to when Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 were in trouble and Bungie was able to pull things out of the fire. Like, if you think of Lightfall, Lightfall was a horrifically received expansion. People did not like Lightfall at all. The very next expansion was the Final Shape, which people loved, which was overwhelmingly positively received, right? Think about the launch of Destiny 1. A lot of problems. People were very disappointed with Destiny 1. There was clear-cut content. I mean, you have the Dreadnought in the launch trailer for Destiny 1. Where is that in the game? Nowhere to be found, right? And my goodness, did they pull things back with the Taken King. And the rest is history. Destiny 2 launch, complete disaster, right? We recently reached the player population lows that were achieved after the Destiny 2 launch. Like, it was catastrophic. They pulled it back, right? With the Warmind expansion, certainly, and with Forsaken, and the rest is history. Anthem was never really given a chance, right? It really wasn't. And that is something I think is a bit unfortunate. Now, you can understand the EA decision, like, the player population is low, things are not going well, let's pull the plug. But again, personally, and I'm someone who was really excited for Anthem. I used to make, like, Anthem update videos going over the news, and so I was genuinely hyped for this game. And genuinely disappointed to see the direction it went in a lot of situations, genuinely disappointed to see the lack of content and the delay of the end game and all that stuff was pretty bad. But again, like, there was enough people that actually thought the base gameplay loop was really cool. And again, almost everyone thought that flying around in these javelins is actually pretty sick. If you would have had a solid, you know, gameplay loot loop around that, if you would have fixed the loot problems, had it where you could actually see what you get as you get it, so you could change your loadouts mid-activity, put on new stuff that you get, add that stuff, add a few more endgame activities, I think this game had a chance. But unfortunately, it never got that chance, and now never will get that chance, because again, it's officially dying. Those are my thoughts on the matter. I genuinely think Anthem is one of the coolest, I said this earlier, but it's like one of the best coats of paint for a game ever, right? The concept of flying around in your mech suit, you're updating your mech suit with all these different abilities. By the way, can I also add here, one of the things Anthem did, being able to have a singular character and you're switching between your javelins, you're switching between your mech suits, so your singular character can play all 4 classes, right? Because each suit is like a different class, without having to do everything again. Think about games like Destiny and Borderlands. They make you play the campaign again on every single character. It's one of the, I mean, so many other games, Diablo, all this stuff. If you want to start a new character, you have to do everything again. The Anthem concept of actually your character is your suit, and you can just hop into different suits and pick up where you left off. You don't have to play the campaign again. Was actually a fairly brilliant idea. And anyways, stuff like that, the flight mechanics, the coolness of like the missile barrages, the actual abilities, and seeing like the ice explosions and the fire explosions of the storm elemental character and all that stuff, so cool. The game looked so good, but underneath that coat of paint was a rust bucket of a car, right? And unfortunately, just all these problems with the inner workings meant that people didn't stick around. They maybe got the game initially because it looked so cool, and then once they played it and realized how hollow the looting system was, and also how hollow the actual end game was and the gameplay loops were, they just stopped playing. And again, the server shut down tomorrow. So goodbye, Anthem. It's been real. And no other game has tried to do anything like this in terms of like your mech suit flying. Like, you'd think, you know, a bunch of games are Marvel licensed. This is the easiest layup of like an Iron Man game. Just copy the Anthem flight mechanics for an Iron Man game. I don't know why they haven't done that. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more, well, I guess it's not going to be Anthem, but Destiny 2 content, be sure to subscribe. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.